Good evening and welcome back to, what is this, night 3 of the 2020 Stiffie Awards. If you've followed us this far, thank you. You've got some staying power. Like a podcast Stiffie, if you will. I don't know where I was going with that, but here we are. Here we are anyway to talk about our films of 2020. Joined, as always, by Mideon, Midge, and Seddon. Sorry,
Yo.
I forgot who was with me there. Hello, boys.
That's what happens when you have an erection for this long. You forget things. The blood's gone from your head, mate.
I've been sat here for, 24 hours now. It's crazy.
No.
Although I did manage to slip out and go get a gin and tonic, so that's good. Right. Films of 2020. Personally, I found this topic quite hard to do because, the world being the way it is, I didn't actually see many films at all. Many films weren't really released, for a while, for good periods. If they were, they certainly weren't in the cinema.
It was a great year for independent film.
Whereas I go, you might as well have ended cinema on the 1st of February because they banged out the park in the first month and give up after that.
That's the thing. I mean, I watch, a lot of like movie reviews and stuff on YouTube and read a lot of stuff as well. It seems that because obviously some releases in cinemas, remember those, are like staggered when it comes to the end of the year. So a lot of films that come out in December for the US come out in January/February over here. So January is such a crap month for films for the US. And they talk about it literally, if something comes out in January, the film's literally just been sent to die by the studios. But when stuff gets released in January over here, it's the incredible stuff that is from the back end of last year. So when it comes to doing your top 10 lists, a lot of the films, would appear on some people's previous year's list because they're American. And then obviously over here, it's on this current year's list.
We get a lot of the awards ceremonies, Oscar type movies released in that January.
January is very heavy for that, which is great.
They pale in comparison to the Stiffies.
Yes,
I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
This is the award to get if you're a filmmaker.
But you are right, Stu. It's a strange year to review films of the year, isn't it? Because normally you would have 12 months of cinema releases and independent releases to kind of go over. And I think whenever I've considered these in other years, it's been like, if you look at a top 10, it's tough because you'll watch a lot of movies. But yes, limited choice. But I would still say a strangely excellent year for movies, though.
So I will kick things off in traditional style, where I think mine are a testament to kind of the massive shift in how films have been delivered to us in, this pandemic. I think all of mine, none of them I watched in the cinema. 2 of them, I think, premiered on streaming services. So my number 3 pick is the Disney Plus film Hamilton. It's the musical, but filmed. It's not a live action interpretation of Hamilton. It's the stage show filmed. That's all it was. Mm-hmm. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I guess I probably could have put that on my new to me list as well. But for me, there was just more enjoyable picks.
I nearly watched it last night, but the controller was on the other side of the room, and I couldn't be bothered to get it.
I remember when I told my parents to watch this because I'd heard so many good things about it. I couldn't be bothered to watch it myself personally, but I said, my mum and dad were looking for something to watch, so I put it on for them on Disney Plus, and then they turned it off after half an hour because they said that they couldn't understand what they were saying because they were just like singing and shouting a lot in American accents.
Well, it is set in America.
I know.
And it's a musical.
Jeez. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Hamilton. It was a very, it mixed a lot of modern stylings, modern genres of music like rap and hip hop and, genres that you don't typically hear in your typical musical. So it was good. I really enjoyed it. Number 2 for me was Invisible Man. I picked this up when it was released on Sky Movies. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, but I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Really pleasant surprise for me. I was expecting so little from that trailer, and I thought they did a really good job with it.
Just an interesting themes throughout. It wasn't just your. They did something different with the Invisible Man name, didn't they?
Yeah. Lee Winnell's an incredibly talented director and writer. He's one of the best working in the business today. I mean, for those who enjoyed The Invisible Man or want to watch something else that he's done after watching The Invisible Man, watch Upgrade. Fantastic action film, really good. A lot of the filming techniques that he used in Upgrade, he uses again in The Invisible Man. If you remember, all I'll say without spoiling anything is the kitchen scene, the way the camera moves. It's all using a robotic arm that is sequenced to move in a certain way at the exact right time, so the actors just line up their actions with the movement of the camera, and it creates that really crisp, free flowing, realistic action sequence that is coupled by great performances and the movement of the camera as well, which is really interesting.
And currently available on Netflix if anyone does want to watch Upgrade.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, okay.
My number one pick for 2020 was released, I guess, mid-June. You will know this more than anyone.
End of July.
Did it premiere on Shudder?
It's a Shudder exclusive, yes.
Okay, cool. But now got a cinematic and
Blu-ray release. Blu-ray. It's got a limited theatrical release, and there's a special edition Blu-ray coming early next year.
Excellent. The film I'm talking about is Host. Kind of a horror film made during lockdown. Excellent use of kind of like Skype or Zoom. That kind of aesthetic. It's really clever in how it used that aesthetic to create suspense. Just a very fresh horror film. Something that kind of you don't get very often.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
It really did sing to stuff
symptomatic of the times.
Yeah, if you'd have done it any other year or a year later, probably a lot of the audience wouldn't have really had an affinity with it. But using sort of Zoom that we were all using at the time and Teams and things like that, great.
Yeah, it's so for. Just to let you know as well, it's number 3 on my list, so I suppose we'll run into mine after we talk about Host. I got the opportunity to speak to Rob Savage and Jed Shepard, the director and co-writer, respectively. Great guys. I've become quite friendly with them as well. They're really talented dudes, and off the back of the massive success of Host, they've signed a 3-film deal with Blumhouse. They're working with Sam Raimi on a project. It's incredible as well because they're British, so it's great to see British filmmakers. Again, we elaborated on it in the last part when I was talking about making the best of a bad situation. They came up with the idea for Host, wrote it, shot it, edited everything within the space of 12 weeks during lockdown. The whole thing was conceived and birthed in that 12-week time span, which is just incredible. It's an incredible feat in general, let alone in a bloody lockdown in the middle of a global pandemic. They did some incredible work, and like we said, it's very timely, and it's a film that's going to be. You're going to look back in 10 years' time, and it's going to be. It's definitely a definitive film of its time. But also, it's going to be a great film for prospective filmmakers to watch and learn from in the future, for sure.
Well, that's me done. You go into whiz through your honourable mentions, Mitch, and carry on from there.
Okay, sure, yeah. So obviously I mentioned Host is number 3, but I'll just backtrack and go to some honourable mentions. Some other great films that came out this year on home release, limited theatrical or streaming services, specifically like Shudder. Scare Me was a great film that I really enjoyed. Invisible Man, which we've talked about. The Japanese animated film I Want to Eat Your Pancreas was.
I love that title.
It's a great title. It's not what
it's a love story.
It is a love story. It's incredibly emotional. I cried I was a blubbering mess. Another great animated film. was Ride Your Wave that came out this year. In terms of bigger budget movies, Sonic the Hedgehog was a lot of fun.
I love that movie. I thought it was good.
Yeah, really good fun.
I saw it again this morning because it's on Sky this week.
Is it Sky? Is it the Sky premiere?
Yeah, it's the premiere this week, mate. So go check it out.
Nice. And then some independent films, some independent horrors, the likes of Becky, Sea Fever, Come to Daddy, and Beneath Us were some really great examples of independent films that came out this year. And in terms of some of my favorite foreign films, I loved Zombie on Sale. Was a brilliant take on the zombie genre from some South Korean filmmakers, and probably my favorite foreign film on this list was Why Don't You Just Die, which was just an absolute balls to the wall action horror mix. It's a brilliant mix of Quentin Tarantino and Edgar Wright on absolute steroids, and I love it. And the filmmaker who wrote and directed it is only like in his early 20s, so he's got a bright future ahead of him. Going back to the main list,
just before you go on,
sure.
Midge, just quickly, if anyone has missed these, I'm sure you wouldn't mind me saying that if anyone wants, just any kind of recommendation at any time, just hit you up on Twitter and you'll give them recommend them some films.
Oh, absolutely.
Very good at that.
Yeah. I specialize in horror and Japanese animated films, and a lot of foreign horrors as well. Like I said, Zombie on Sale, great example of that. Hit me up on Twitter at Midgemeister if you want a movie recommendation of that sort of ilk. Although if you are looking for comedies or action or thrillers, like I can try and help out with that as well, for sure. So the main list, number 3 was Host. We've talked about how amazing that is. Number 2 is Parasite, which we'll get into in a bit because it appears on someone else's list. But for me, my favorite film of the year, this film and Parasite are very, very close. But they're very, very different films. So my number 1 film of this year is Makoto Shinkai's gorgeous masterpiece, Weathering with You. I was very fortunate to meet the legend himself. This time last year, it was a year ago on the 10th of December, because the memory came up on my Facebook page.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that obviously COVID has happened, but I'm glad it happened when it did and not a few months earlier, because if anything had stopped me from meeting the director of my favorite film of all time, which is Your Name, I would have been absolutely devastated. So I actually saw Weathering with You last year, but it got its theatrical and home video release this year, so it is a 2020 release. Makoto Shinkai builds on the success and the great foundations of Your Name. It doesn't quite reach that same pinnacle as Your Name for me, because I just think the storyline is a bit tighter, and I think the supernatural element is a bit more believable in a weird way in Your Name than it is Weathering with You. But it's the art style is absolutely breathtaking. The soundtrack, he worked again with the band Radwimps, who he worked with on Your Name. Just everything about it. I listen to the soundtrack on the regular, and everything that whenever I hear a track, I can be transported back to that exact moment in the film when it was used. So the story follows a runaway teenager who runs away to Tokyo. He meets a girl who is revealed as the Sunshine Girl. She can basically get rid of rain and make sunshine. And it's a great love story of taking risks and sacrificing for things that you believe in. If you watch the trailer, they also use my quote in the trailer, which is another thing to tick off the bucket list. Yeah, it's weird as well, because I don't want to spoil too much, but I want to try and sell it to people. If you've seen Your Name, or if you've seen sort of similar films and you like Japanese art style and those kind of futuristic love stories, then whether even if you don't like, Sorry?
If there was a category for the movie that I haven't seen that I most want to see, this would be the top for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you don't like reading subtitles or find it difficult, whenever popular Japanese animated films get released over here, they do have a dubbed version, because anime has become such a widespread international phenomenon. A lot of the distribution companies are very, very good when it comes to getting together a cast of actors to dub over in a multitude of different languages, such as like French, German, Spanish, and English, for those who prefer that, which is, is totally acceptable, if that's what you prefer. But for me, I obviously love it watching it in Japanese and reading the subtitles, and I'm in the process of learning Japanese, so it also helps out a lot with that for me. But yeah, Weathering with You is an absolute gorgeous film, and I can't praise it highly enough. And I'll pass it over now to Seddon.
Anyway, Seddon, over to you. What you got for us?
As I said, like all three of my films were released by the 1st of February, but they do cross over into what Midge was saying. I think all of them got their US release in 2019.
Yeah, that's right.
Number 3 for me is The Lighthouse, which is Robert Eggers' movie. We saw it at the cinema. Again, a novel experience these days, and we saw it at a small independent cinema because it wasn't really getting much of a widescreen showing. And I'd loved his previous movie, The Witch, and I'd seen a trailer for this, but I tried to avoid anything about it because I just wanted to go in cold. And I guess one of the things to do is the description of it is 2 lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity whilst living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. And
I'm out.
But the thing is, that's a really good description because that is exactly what this movie is. It's black and white. It stars Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. And when I say it stars them, it's predominantly just these 2 people in a lighthouse through brutal weather conditions, and they act as people in the time because it is very, I guess, realistic to 1890s, and it's breathtaking. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. It would be a tough sell, I think, to a lot of people. I think a lot of people would maybe switch it off after half an hour and go, it's not for them. But again, it's one of those pieces of cinema as art for me, but with a really, really well acted at the same time. And I think when I did all 3 of mine, as I say, coincidentally, they come out early in the year. But when I looked at movies, and I guess because I do love movies, and when I looked at the TV shows, I tried to go with what I thought was the best. So not I liked it the most, it was the best. However, in movies, it was very easy because the 3 things I liked the most were, as far as I'm concerned, the best. So this one would come in at number 3. Number 2 for me was Jojo Rabbit, and that was actually released on the 1st of January. And I actually went and saw it on New Year's Day. And I come out of the cinema after watching Jojo Rabbit. Bearing in mind, I didn't know what was going to happen this year. But I said, if someone releases a better movie than this year, then it's a miracle. Well, I didn't know there wasn't going to be much released. And also I didn't know that there was going to be something released that I liked more. But Jojo Rabbit, I think we might have covered it on the show. So I'll quickly fly through that. It's a Taika Waititi movie, and it is equal parts hilarious and heart-wrenching. I think the thing that Taika Waititi does so well is be able to cross both of those mediums to make you care about these characters by making you laugh with them, so that when the gut punches come in his movies, they really hit you hard. I'd recommend it to anyone. And it's got an imaginary friend that's Hitler. I mean, who doesn't want to watch a movie with an imaginary friend that is Hitler? And my number 1, which, as I said nothing would beat Jojo Rabbit. And then not long after that, I watched Parasite. And
the Oscar winner.
And you know what? There's a lot of years where I think you can poke at the Oscars and say, oh, that was given to someone because of another movie they made, or it's not so great. It is one of the times where I'd say the Oscar winner was the right Oscar winner. I mean, he's got a wonderful collection of movies. And I don't know exactly what it is about this that makes it the best of his by far. I keep coming back to it's how he portrays his characters, and it almost doesn't matter who they are, what their characteristics are, what they do, whether you like them, whether you don't like them. They just feel real. When I'm watching that movie, I am invested in every single one of the characters' stories, be it a smaller character or a quirky character or someone that I would have no necessary affinity with at any time. I care about all of them, and I want to know. I mean, it's the movie that stayed with me the longest. It's the movie I still think about, and weirdly enough, it's the movie where I want to know what happened to them. But I don't want a sequel. I want to figure out in my head what happened to them, what happens to people after the story. And the truth of it is that I think the story's amazing as well. So I talk about how great the characters are, but what could have been a very simple or base story in someone else's hands, it is great. And I don't want to go into the storyline much because I don't like to do spoilers on movies in case people haven't seen it. But and you go through all that, and then you add on top that it looks amazing. You know, it is filmed beautifully, and the way he sets up the scenes and the way that he makes the places they stay in. So there's two main sets. There's the house of one family, a house of another, and those buildings are characters in the story. They're so well put in there that actually they're as compelling sometimes as the human beings that you're watching doing it. But I said it when we covered it on the show. For me, it's probably the best movie of the decade, let alone and that's when I sneak it into 2019 to justify that. But it's probably the best movie I've seen in a decade, and possibly I think give it a couple of years distance from it, it may actually end up being for me the best movie I've ever seen.
Wow, high praise! High praise.
It's a great shout. I mean, as I said, for my number 1 and 2, they sort of fluctuate on a daily basis because they are both absolute masterpieces. And Seddon's explained a lot of why I love Parasite in the same way that why he loves it. For me, Bong Joon-ho, he's written such an interesting cast of characters that on both sides of the spectrum, because it's all about cultural, like class divide and everything. It's written in such a way that you're meant to feel one way towards one set of characters, but the way what you think of them switches on the regular. So it's down to the audience to really decide who is the protagonist in this piece and who is the antagonist. There isn't an out and out protagonist and antagonist like there is in a normal movie. You have the good guys that you've got to root for, and yes, they overcome the bad guys, happy days, end of movie. But this is something that is so strongly written, and again, it's presented to the audience in the way that the Bong Joon-ho deems the audience as intellectuals, which is something that I want to try and do in my movies. I want to try and treat the audience as intellectuals, and rather than hand-holding them or conforming to society's standard of good overcomes evil, the end. And you mentioned that it's beautifully shot. Again, the whole class divide thing is really brought into it with the way some of the shots are framed and the musical cues. And it's funny, it's horrific, it's sad, it's emotional, it's happy. It's such a wide range of genres, all beautifully blended into one. And it's great as well. One of my favorite foreign actors, Choi Woo-shik, who plays the son of the Won family. He's an incredible actor who speaks amazing English as well. He's been in some of my absolute favorite foreign films. I mean, obviously he's in Parasite. He was also in Train to Busan, which he was great in that. Yeah. And he was also in The Witch Part 1, The Subversion, which is a film that I love from last year, which I describe as like John Wick meets The Raid meets X-Men. So I wanted to give that a little shout out as well. But yeah, Parasite is an absolute masterpiece. Again, similar to what I said about Host, where filmmakers in the future will, in 10, 15, 20 years, will go back and look at Parasite and analyze it and use it to inspire that whole new generation. And it's so great to see it get the recognition it deserves, because so many foreign films get overlooked in various award shows. But this is the year that is going to change the landscape of film forever. And it starts with Parasite.
I hope so. My fingers are crossed.
Thank you, boys. Now, Mid, I don't know if have you watched any films this year?
I struggled to compile 3. But I've managed to get 3. So number 3,
Nice.
Number 3 is the recent Lego Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes.
Just to try and get 3 on my list.
I loved it.
It was great. Obviously, it's a kids' film, but I won't go into it. But the premise of it is quickly that they basically get warped through different parts of different Star Wars films. So if you're a classic fan of the classic films and characters and all that, they're all in this holiday special, and it's really cool. Better than the main Star Wars holiday special anyway. It originally came out, but it's not hard, is it? So my second one is the SpongeBob movie on Netflix, the new one, SpongeBob Sponge on the Run. It's a great film. We were talking about What We Do in the Shadows earlier. Matt Berry, Laszlo from What We Do in the Shadows is the voice of the bad guy. Triton. You'll recognise it straight away if you watch it. But great film. SpongeBob again is another one for kids and adults. There's like a music video in it with Snoop Dogg, and Keanu Reeves in it as the tumbleweed and all this kind of stuff.
I didn't know that was a.
Does he say you're breathtaking?
No. And number 1 is the only film that I saw in the cinema. Is Sonic.
Yeah.
Sonic movie. And it is not just number 1 because it's the only film I saw in the cinema. It's number 1 because everyone, even me included, thought it was going to be shit. But it's actually quite a good film. It's not the best film ever and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they've done Sonic justice, and they actually make it interesting and make you want to see a sequel if they bring one out, which I think they are. So
they are, yeah. They're in the process of making the sequel.
I think it was the highest grossing film of the year as well, because it was one of the only films that came out of the cinema before the pandemic. So, and also,
I noticed that.
Yeah, I think the popularity of it. I think there's rumours of they're doing Sonic Netflix series now as well. So, yeah, so they're mine. I managed to cobble 3 together. So,
holy shit, he's done it. The boy came good. Thanks, Midge. Mid, sorry. Okay. I'm never going to be able to do that right, am I? I'm never going to learn the difference between Midge and Mid.
At least once per show.
Never. Yep.
Like an old person that's gone senile and calls their kid the name of the kid as the pet or something. You already lost it, mate.
Is that you, Dave?
Right, let's do our listener submissions. Now, Chris Lacey, I thought you'd done some. You've done every other topic. I don't know if I've done something with the form, but you don't have any films of the year on there. That could be a user error on my part, but I can't see any. I don't think I can delete your submission. So whether you just missed that one or not, I don't know. But if you do have some, then obviously let us know. But it's not on your form, so I will move on. Kenny Sutcliffe, his nominations for Film of the Year are Parasite, Possessor, and The Invisible Man.
Good, really, really good choices. Really, really good choices.
Boy has taste. Thank you, Kenny. Ben White has gone for Tenet, Palm Springs, and Christmas Chronicles 2. Yet to see that myself, but
fucking hell.
Wasn't it? I didn't see Tenet. Tenet's the one. That's the one that I missed. I
did actually see Tenet in a cinema back in August. That's the only time that I've been out of the house for anything apart from work since March. I did go and see Tenet in August before Wave 2 struck and everything went to shit again.
And I work on the theory for Christmas Chronicles too. Like, probably people will get it watched sometime over the Christmas period. So I figure we'll pick that up in the new year as one of our reviews or something like that. But I liked it more than I liked number one. So,
Karen states that her films of the year they were slim pickings, but they're going to vote for Sonic the Hedgehog. The only film they watched in the cinema, Guns Akimbo.
Yes, I still need to watch that. That's the Daniel Radcliffe one. Yeah, that got It was one of those movies like The Hunt that had a fair degree of controversy surrounding it because of the subject material. But it's a weird one. I don't think it's got a home disc release over here. I think it was released on some form of streaming service, but it's one that I do want to watch at some point.
It's currently not on any streaming, which is a shame, because when you said it's like akin to The Hunt, I'm in, because I thought The Hunt was fantastic.
And they are predicting The Veil of Isolation to be in their picks of 2020. If not 2021.
Thank you.
Let's hope it's
so
2020
much.
and doesn't slip into... Oh, no, it will be 2021, won't it?
It will be 2021, yeah. It'll be finished by the end of 2020, but it will technically be a 2021 release, because we still haven't decided where it's going to premiere yet, because where it was originally meant to premiere, the Starburst Film Festival, looks like it's probably going to be cancelled for next year, because it's quite an early on in the year thing. So, but yeah, we'll keep you posted. I'll be sure to either pop in from time to time on the podcast, or at least let Stu and the guys know of when it's coming out and everything. But thank you very much. I really hope that people enjoy The Veil of Isolation next year.
Thank you as always for your submissions. None for Amanda. She's coming up soon. Don't worry, guys. Okay.
It's because Air Force One wasn't released this year.
That's true. Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this rundown. Join us again tomorrow, where we'll be discussing our top 3 TV shows of 2020. Thank you, boys. We shall reconvene tomorrow, so join us then. Goodbye.